This is the mobility assessment and also a way to improve your mobility throughout any day. Really great for recovery days or after a harder workout. So also, if you do something and you realize that there's some kind of imbalance, you can spend a little extra time on any of these. So we're just going to kind of go down the body to just see where things are at. So starting with your shoulders, doing backwards circles. This can also be a good warm-up before strength. And then feel how your hips are. If there's one side that's particularly tight, you can kind of hang out there. You're looking for being able to shift your hips side to side. You can feel what's tight. For me, it's the low back on the right side. And then knees. This also gets the ankles a little bit. So start to think about what your dorsiflexion is. And if you feel more of a stretch here in the back of your leg, that's a sign that your calves could be a little bit tight, versus if you feel a pinch in here, that's more of a joint issue. So some decompression in the joint could be helpful. All right, now you're gonna just drop down into a low lunge. This also gets a little bit of an assessment of your adductors on the inside of the leg. You can assess any crepitus in your knees. If your range of motion in your knees does not allow for this much of a flexion, just move to where you can go without pain. And as you're able, try to increase that a little bit. Unless you have an injury where a doctor has said never to go into that range of motion. Our joints have synovial fluid, and that's what nourishes the joint. But the way that the fluid moves is through full range of motion. So it's good to get all the way end range for that. Same with the hips. Feel what is going on there. Our femur kind of goes into the socket this way. So again, kind of nourishing the joint that direction. Feel what it's like to get external rotation versus internal rotation. Usually people have one side that likes to externally rotate, the other side that likes to internally rotate a little bit. Then you can go up a little bit into more of a squat and then straightening your legs. Feel what your hamstrings are like. The wider your stance, the easier it's going to be to extend the legs. If your calves are really tight, it might be hard to get full extension because of that, or if your back is really tight, it will round like mine does. So just kind of getting some movement in there. And then with your feet, just get in some circles. If you find when you're doing this that you can't get, if your toe stays totally rigid, that is a really good thing to start working on. A lot of times our feet are quite tight. So circles, starting to get more range of motion, especially with, this is plantar flexion. So if you get plantar fasciitis, if you get really any kind of lower leg or feet injuries, it can often be from not having mobility in the feet. So here's another way to also look at that. So just sitting on your heels, if that's not available to you, you can grab a towel or blanket, pillow, whatever you need so that it can actually be passive. So you're not looking to hold tight when you're doing these, it's more to be able to just sit and chill out. For some people, chilling out in this position is not likely, but just do what you can. Over time, if you're wanting to change the length of a muscle, it takes at least 2 minutes to hold there. So I often think these are kind of good ways to just slow time down in a busy world. I think that time moves so fast, just hop into your favorite, not favorite stretch and time slows way down. Similarly, when you go back into the low squat position, you can work on dorsiflexion this way. It's always also really interesting to see if your If I go back to here and I'm on my heels, see what your feet do in kind of their natural position, because that can also give you some information of where things might be tight, and you can manually just kind of give yourself a little bit of a massage. And then finally, a quad assessment. You can do this on a couch or any kind of bench. You can even do it on a wall if you're a little more flexible. Get as close to whatever you're using as possible, and then you're going to rotate and put your foot up, and then bring the other foot forward. This is called the couch stretch. It is a doozy. If your quads are really tight, you might have to come forward a little bit more, because you don't want your pelvis to be dumping like mine is. So adjust as you need. And this one is notoriously challenging for skiers, runners. Our hip flexors get really tight, especially if we sit at a desk all day. So this can be a really good one, though not the most pleasant. And finally, another hip flexor that gets really more into the hip itself versus the quad. Just a nice low lunge. And really, again, think about your pelvis being a bowl, so you don't want to be dumping forward. Imagine there's water in the bowl. So whether it dumps forward or dumps back, and also the rib cage. So we often think about what the rib cage is doing in relation to the pelvis. So the rib cage goes this way, the pelvis goes this way. You want those to be kind of on the same plane. So the sternum is in line with the pubis bone. So shift forward versus dumping back with the rib cage, or dumping the pelvis. And then you can make it a little more active if you'd like, by just pushing through the foot and make it more of an active lunge. Draw your arms overhead. Again, think about what your rib cage does. If you arch like this, try to pull your rib cage down. And you can do a little bit of side lunges for the adductors.